The cheetah leapt at the antelope, a predatory strike that seemed destined for success. However, in the blink of an eye, the antelope turned the tables. With swift precision, it thrust its deadly horns directly into the cheetah mother's body, shifting the entire outcome of the hunt. This cheetah mother, a first-time parent, had hidden her for newborn cubs deep within a thicket. Only a few days old, they were fragile and helpless. During the first few weeks after their birth, the mother couldn't stray too far from them, as they depended on her for survival. With the cubs nestled in their temporary refuge, the cheetah mother set out to find food. Like all female cheetahs, she did not claim a territory. Instead, she followed the trails of prey, constantly wandering in search of food. The first few days of their nomadic life were challenging. The cubs, still very young, grew fatigued quickly, and the mother had to be vigilant, always aware of the dangers lurking in the vast grasslands. But despite these threats, the cubs seemed unconcerned, blissfully unaware of the countless perils of the savannah. For this cheetah mother, survival was a constant struggle. Not only did she need to care for her cubs, but she also had to find enough food to nourish them. The stress of always being on the hunt left her in a constant state of hunger. Even while caring for her cubs, the mother had to hunt. It was an exhausting task that demanded all her energy. The following day, she continued her search for food, but she was not the only predator in this region. In front of her lay a dense thicket, a place where her cubs would struggle to navigate. The cheetah mother proceeded cautiously, wary of what dangers might be hidden among the thick underbrush. Her senses were sharp as she moved carefully through the area, knowing that her family's survival depended on avoiding potential threats. But as she navigated the terrain, she realized they had been spotted by another predator, one that showed no mercy. These predators saw an opportunity not just to hunt, but to remove a potential competitor, and they wasted no time in closing in on the cheetah cubs. The cheetah mother, knowing the danger was real, threw herself into a desperate effort to divert the predator's attention away from her cubs. Her courage and sacrifice were meant to buy her cubs precious time to escape. Amidst the chaos, the cubs scrambled, confused and frightened. The cheetah mother continued to fight off the attacker, hoping her efforts would ensure her cubs' safety. After the predator finally retreated, she spent the rest of the afternoon searching for her lost cubs. Unfortunately, the cubs had become separated, and only 2 of them returned to her. For the entire rainy season, the cheetah mother and her cubs remained out of sight, likely hiding to avoid further dangers. The grief of losing her cubs was overwhelming, and for a time, she chose to stay hidden in an attempt to protect the remaining cubs. Months passed, and when she appeared again, her 2 surviving sons were nearly fully grown. Soon, they would be able to fend for themselves. One morning, the cheetah mother was again hunting for food. The plains were filled with prey, but her attention was drawn to a particular antelope. She knew the time was right. She had to act quickly. In a burst of speed, the cheetah mother closed in on the antelope, able to reach top speeds of over 100 kilometers per hour in just a few seconds. With each stride, she could cover nearly 8 meters, and within seconds, she would be right behind her prey. But even if she caught up, the risks were high and injury could be devastating. Suddenly, a larger and more dangerous predator appeared in the distance, a long-legged gazelle. The cheetah mother knew she had to act quickly, but this gazelle wasn't going to surrender easily. The battle for survival was about to get even fiercer. For this situation, it was a chance to eliminate a future competitor. Seizing the opportunity, the predator quickly made its way toward the cheetah cubs. The cheetah mother, in a desperate bid, threw herself into the fray, trying to draw the attacker away from her cubs. Her courage and sacrifice were aimed at buying the cubs precious time to escape. One morning, the cheetah mother was hunting again. The plains were filled with prey, but she had a particular fondness for antelope. She knew she needed to act quickly and seize the right moment. In a flash, she surged forward, capable of accelerating to 100 kilometers per hour in just 3 seconds. At full speed, the cheetah covered 7.8 meters in a single stride and could run about 30 meters per second. If she didn't catch the antelope, all would be in vain. Even if she did manage to catch it, she would risk serious injury. Suddenly, a much larger prey appeared, a long-legged gazelle. The cheetah mother made the daring decision to pursue it. She leapt toward the prey, intending to land a fatal bite. But the gazelle wasn't going down without a fight. It struggled fiercely, trying to break free of the cheetah's grip. As the battle raged, the cheetah mother found herself slowly losing strength in the face of the gazelle's resistance. The cubs, eager to help, tried to assist in the struggle, unwilling to let their mother lose the prey. But the gazelle stood its ground, unyielding. In the blink of an eye, the gazelle twisted its head, using its deadly horns to strike directly at the cheetah mother. The cheetah mother, fully aware of the danger, tried to avoid the strike, but the gazelle forcefully rammed its horns into the ground, knocking the cheetah mother off balance. Then the tragic event occurred. The gazelle's powerful legs penetrated the cheetah's body, delivering a fatal blow. The cheetah mother, severely injured, could no longer run with the same speed and grace. With her escape route now blocked, she had no choice but to face the devastating reality that the hunt had gone terribly wrong. The cheetah brothers now faced a harsh reality: their mother's death had sealed their fate. Without her protection, they were no longer the young hunters they once were. They had transformed from fearless predators into prey, forced to flee at the first sign of danger. The path ahead was filled with obstacles, but their survival depended on their ability to quickly adapt and grow stronger. A year passed, and the brothers were nearing adulthood. However, their lives were no longer defined by the comforting presence of their mother. The time had come for them to fend for themselves. They established their own territory, patrolling it regularly to mark and protect it from potential threats. Their territory was their refuge, and they guarded it fiercely. The brothers' domain was large and varied, and it included a vantage point on a hill that gave them a perfect view of the surrounding plains. This spot became their observation post, where they could survey the land for any signs of movement. They had learned the importance of teamwork and had formed an alliance to defend their territory. Survival, they now realized, required constant vigilance and effort. As the days passed, the dry heat of the late winter started to take its toll on the wildlife around them. Although the temperature wasn't enough to cause overheating, the midday sun at 35 degrees Celsius made the herbivores sluggish and less alert, providing a perfect opportunity for the cheetah brothers to hunt. They knew that this window of vulnerability was fleeting, and they had to act quickly. The best time for an attack was during the hottest part of the day, when their prey was drowsy and disoriented. The brothers used the low shrubs and tall grasses to their advantage, sneaking up on a male springbok. When they were close enough, one of the cheetahs sprang into action, racing forward with a speed that only a cheetah could muster. Their finely honed skills, combined with their instincts, allowed them to close the distance rapidly, increasing the chances of a successful strike. The situation quickly became chaotic, with the predator and the cheetah mother circling each other. She hoped to protect her cubs long enough for them to flee to safety. After the attacker finally retreated, the cheetah mother spent the entire afternoon searching for her lost cubs. The little ones had wandered off, lost in the confusion, only two cubs returned. For the entire rainy season, the cheetah mother and her cubs remained out of sight. The grief of losing her cubs likely caused her to choose hiding as the safest option. When she finally reappeared, her two sons were nearly grown and capable of fending for themselves. The springbok sensed danger as the cheetahs drew nearer and tried to escape, but its attempts only hastened its fate. In a matter of seconds, the brothers were on top of the springbok. The lead cheetah swiftly silenced its prey, clamping down on its throat to prevent any cries for help. With each powerful bite, the springbok's struggle grew weaker, and soon, it was no longer a threat. The brothers wasted no time in devouring their catch. They ripped through the muscles, leaving behind the skin, bones, and internal organs. Without their mother to guide them, they had learned to hunt and feed on their own, but every hunt was still a dangerous challenge. They had become more self-sufficient, but the risks of living in the wild were ever present. Suddenly, a disturbance in the air alerted them to potential danger. They immediately abandoned their kill and fled, knowing that larger predators could be lurking nearby, ready to steal their hard-earned meal. Their instincts told them that survival meant prioritizing their lives over the food they had just claimed. Now fully nourished, they took no chances. Life was fragile, and every decision mattered. They had learned to survive, but the future was uncertain. In the wild, there was no guarantee that tomorrow would be as successful as today. For now, the brothers had each other, their territory, and the knowledge that survival was their top priority. But the challenges they faced were far from over. The true test of their strength and unity was still ahead. If they could support each other and survive the scorching dry season, their lives would be filled with hope. But not all of them were so fortunate. One tragic mother cheetah lost one of her cubs, and the only surviving cub met a grim fate pierced by a tree branch, with its pelvis severely damaged. She was forced to give up on this young life, deepening her sorrow. Despite the overwhelming grief, fate had even more challenges in store for her. Another female cheetah entered her territory, which pushed her deeper into despair. In the Okavango, 3 cheetahs were forced to share the same territory, leading to an increasingly uneasy coexistence. The dominant male ruled over the area with authority, and his presence loomed over everyone. Buddha, the male cheetah, was now 5 years old and lived with his mate, Marami, who was skilled at climbing. Their 3-year-old son, Mio, still lived with them, though, under normal circumstances, he should have left a year ago to establish his own territory. But Mio remained nearby, seemingly unaware of his predicament. Mio still appeared carefree, unaware that his mother could no longer care for him. Marami had recently given birth to 2 new cubs and had shifted her attention to them. As a solitary animal by nature, she was now faced with a difficult decision. She had to leave her cubs alone to go hunting. Out in the wild, the hunt was a necessity for survival, but leaving the young ones behind came with risks. While searching for food, Marami unexpectedly encountered Mio, the last surviving cub from her previous litter. Despite the fact that Marami had already endured much hardship, she still had room for tolerance. Would this encounter mark a turning point for Mio's future? Only time would tell. He appeared within his own territory, and it was time to sever the connection. He marked his territory near the tree, his first obvious sign of separation. The relationship with his son had deteriorated into open conflict. Faced with his mother's hostility, he knew the time had come to make a choice. Although he was now larger than his mother, the wounds from previous confrontations remained, and he reluctantly left the area. With Mio's departure, Marami could finally focus on one thing: hunting. As an excellent climber who preferred advantageous positions, she was a master of this skill. Her method was quiet and efficient, avoiding any commotion that might alert other predators. Marami knew she had to quickly hide her prey to avoid attracting attention. She left with her cubs, leading them through familiar secret pathways to where she would feed them. It was a risky move, as with such small cubs, she couldn't relocate the carcass to a safer tree since they couldn't climb. On the ground, they were exposed to danger, and hiding the prey was their only option to eat undisturbed for a while. However, the wild dogs were near, drawn by their sharp sense of smell. Marami had to act quickly and decisively. She came up with a plan to distract the wild dogs, giving her cubs enough time to escape. This balance required sacrifice, allowing the wild dogs to take their prize, but as she neared the den, a sense of danger loomed. The wild dogs had been circling nearby. However, the wild dogs were near, drawn by their sharp sense of smell. Marami had to act quickly and decisively. She came up with a plan to distract the wild dogs, giving her cubs enough time to escape. This balance required sacrifice, allowing the wild dogs to take their prize, but as she neared the den, a sense of danger loomed. The wild dogs had been circling nearby. She quietly called out for her cubs, but only one answered her. What followed was a nightmare. A cold, lifeless body met her eyes. The blow to her heart was crushing, and the pain was unbearable. In the blink of an eye, her cubs were taken from her. With a mournful, pained growl, Marami knew there was no time to grieve. The killers were still nearby, and mourning would have to wait. She had no choice but to keep moving forward. He decided to move to a new den, but everything around him was unfamiliar. Everything in this new place seemed novel, and he was particularly curious about the things around him. He was fond of his mother's tail, which served as a good reaction test for him. Marami hid in the dry grass, and before beginning the hunt again, she needed to rest and recover her strength. Everything was fine with her and the cubs. They were safe in their new home. During this changing season, predators needed to hunt farther away. The Kigilia trees had bloomed, offering valuable winter treasures. Marami watched from a safe distance. Now, she began her hunt. She found a tree, hoping that the flowers would attract the spotted deer beneath it. She displayed immense patience, watching the gazelle move and carefully selecting her target. Her hunting strategy required flexibility. She needed to predict the grazing patterns of her prey. The opportunity arrived. She swiftly leapt down from the high tree, but she missed her target. As her position was revealed, the prey fled. The frustration was clear on her face. She had wasted so much energy for nothing, but there was no time to dwell on it. She had to press on. The call of the spotted deer alerted the lions, and things were about to get worse. Meanwhile, Marami's cubs were at an age where they began to explore. Curiosity led them to venture out of their hiding place, especially when their mother was not around. He had learned to climb and enjoyed playing by scaling various objects, but he was still small and fragile. Marami continued to search for prey within her territory. However, the sound of monkeys caused her to become uneasy. She began to search around, and what she discovered shocked her. One of her cubs was tangled in the tree, its hind legs ensnared, and the pelvis was broken. She desperately tried to help the cub, gently picking it up in her mouth, hoping to get it to stand, but the cub's lower body was paralyzed, and it could not stand up. It seemed like all efforts were in vain. Marami paced anxiously, hoping for a miracle. The cub's breathing became rapid and labored. Marami felt as though her heart was being torn apart. She knew that nothing she did could help the cub. Eventually, the last surviving cub touched the other cub with its tail, bidding a final farewell. Marami decided to leave, the pain too much to bear. The cub, with all its remaining strength, crawled slowly, dragging itself to its final resting place. It knew it could not keep up with its mother and had already been sentenced to death. Marami, in her sorrow, continued forward as though trying to ease her grief. But more dangers were on the horizon. A new female leopard entered her territory. This leopard was larger and stronger than Marami, and the scent of the new arrival seemed familiar. It was Marami's sister. This female leopard, despite being from the same family, had a different father. Bloodline no longer held much significance in such a context. The sister boldly intruded on Marami's territory, and instinctively, Marami tried to cover up any signs of challenge to her authority. But her mate, Buddha, seemed attracted by the scent of the female in estrus, and he responded strongly. The new female quickly accepted his invitation. After losing her own cubs, Marami refused to let her territory be taken. The two leopards faced off in the open area. The female leopard could run at a speed of 50 kilometers per hour, and her 60 kilograms body crashed into Marami with full force, ready to battle. The fight was intense. Marami struggled to defend herself, using all her strength to block the sisters' attacks, but the new female was faster, fiercer, and showed no mercy. She completely dominated the battle. Marami's efforts were in vain. Realizing she couldn't win, she chose to retreat from the fight. The newcomer claimed victory and soon connected with Buddha. They mated, and in time, they would have their own cubs.